Come closer. I want to feel you near me.
From the very first day I moved into Linden Court, I felt like my life had finally reached its breaking point. I had been running from one crisis to another, losing my job, sleeping in my cousin's storage room, working odd shifts for tiny pay, and now, after everything I had endured, I found myself staring at a cracked mirror in a tiny rented room, wondering if this was all my life would ever be. But everything changed the moment my landlady, Serena Hallberg, knocked on my door one warm afternoon and offered me something that would alter my entire understanding of kindness, loneliness, and the quiet battles people fight in silence. I had no idea then that the thing she needed most from me wasn't money, wasn't favors, but something far deeper. 10 minutes of simple human closeness each night that would reveal the truth hiding behind her graceful smile. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. It helps more people find stories like this and keeps the channel growing. I had moved into that weather-worn house because it was the only place in the entire city that didn't require a heavy security deposit. The sun was always bright through the tall windows, leaving long warm rays on the wooden floors, making the place appear softer than it really was. I worked day shifts loading crates at a distribution center, and by the time I came home each evening, my arms ached, my feet stung, and my thoughts were heavy with worry. Rent was due soon, and my bank balance was embarrassingly low. I often lay on my narrow bed staring at the ceiling, imagining the numbers in my account dropping like leaves in autumn. I kept telling myself I would figure it out. I always did. But even I could feel the tightening around my chest that meant I was out of options. Serena lived directly below me in a larger, beautifully furnished room that still carried the faint scent of jasmine and old books. She was, in her early 50s, soft-spoken, with silver blonde hair pinned in neat twists and eyes that seemed to hold stories of joy and grief in equal measure. She rarely bothered me except for the usual tenant-landlady matters, but sometimes I would catch her staring out through her lace curtains at the courtyard, her face dipped in the golden afternoon light, wearing an expression I could never quite place. It wasn't sadness exactly, but more like someone holding the weight of memories that refused to fade. When she came upstairs that day, I assumed she needed help fixing her leaky sink again. Instead, she stood at my door with a calm seriousness that instantly made me sit up straighter. She held my rent envelope in her hand, except it wasn't sealed. That alone sent my stomach dropping, because I had given her only half of what I owed. I braced myself for a scolding, maybe even an eviction, but instead she softly said she wanted to talk. We went downstairs, and the moment I stepped into her living space, I felt swallowed by warmth. The sunlight stretched across her carpet, illuminating every antique frame on the wall. She moved slowly, as though her bones carried hidden pain, and gestured for me to sit. Then she said something so unexpected that I froze mid-breath. She was willing to cut my rent in half. My mind spun with relief, shock, and confusion. But before I could even thank her, she added the condition: 10 minutes with her every night. Not in a physical way, not in the inappropriate way my panic-filled mind first imagined, but sitting with her, talking, drinking tea, simply sharing presence. It sounded strange to me, even mysterious. Why would someone want that? Why me? Why 10 minutes? But she looked so fragile in that moment, like her voice was balancing on a thread. She said she had been living with too much quiet and that silence had become heavier than she could bear. I didn't fully understand, but desperation blurred my judgment, and so I nodded. And that single nod set the course for the most unexpected bond I would ever form. Our nightly routine began the very next day. After my day shift, I would change clothes, wash my face, and head downstairs exactly at 7 in the evening. Serena would always be waiting, sitting in her cream armchair with 2 cups of herbal tea releasing soft clouds of steam into the golden room. At first, the minutes were awkward. I didn't know what to talk about, and she didn't ask me questions. We just sat there, letting the little sounds of the house fill the space, the ticking wall clock, the hum of the fridge, the distant rustle of leaves outside. As days passed, the moments grew lighter. She told me stories about her garden, about the lavender she used to grow, about her late husband who had built her a wooden bench under the apricot tree in the yard. She spoke about her daughter, Clara, who had moved across the country and rarely called. Sometimes she spoke with such warmth that her voice glowed, other times there was a quiet trembling hidden beneath her words. I listened, truly listened, in a way no one had listened to me in years, and something inside me softened without my permission. She began noticing things about me before I even said them, when I was exhausted, when I was stressed, when I was pretending I wasn't in pain. She once said my silence sometimes spoke louder than my words. I didn't know how to respond to that. It felt like she could see right through me. Around the 3rd week, I started paying attention to her too. I noticed how she winced when bending down, how she always rubbed her hands as if they were cold even when the day was warm, how her smile sometimes ended too quickly like they ran into an invisible wall. The loneliness in her eyes was something I recognized because I had felt it too. But hers was deeper, older, worn like a second skin. And every night when I got up to leave after those 10 minutes, she would whisper a soft thank you as though I had saved her from something heavy. Despite the emotional warmth in that room, I kept struggling in the real world. Work hours were cut, bills piled up, and exhaustion clung to me like dust. One late afternoon, while carrying crates, my knees nearly buckled. When I reached home, I collapsed onto my bed without even turning on the light. I woke up an hour later to the sound of Serena gently tapping on my door. She had brought soup. She said she had heard me come in and felt something was wrong. She didn't need her 10 minutes that night. She just wanted me to eat. And I did, sitting by my window, letting the warm broth ease my throbbing body. For the first time in a long time, someone had cared enough to notice I wasn't okay. But the truth behind her need for those 10 minutes soon came crashing into the open. One Sunday afternoon, while returning from the grocery store, I found her leaning against the courtyard railing, breathing heavily. The sun was bright on her face, and yet she looked pale, her shoulders trembling slightly. When she saw me, she tried to stand straight, as if to pretend nothing was wrong, but her legs moved uncertainly. I rushed to her, and she whispered that she just needed a moment. But she didn't need just a moment, she needed support. Physical, emotional, the kind you can't admit to unless your walls have already started to crack. She finally confessed later that evening. She had been diagnosed with a chronic condition months earlier, something that made her bones weaken and her heart strain with too much silence and too little company. She didn't tell her daughter because she didn't want to become a burden. She didn't tell neighbors because she wasn't close to any of them. The 10 minutes weren't a strange request, not really. They were her lifeline. After that day, something changed between us. I no longer saw her as simply my landlady. I saw her as someone fighting battles quietly, bravely, and with a heart larger than the loneliness surrounding her. Our 10-minute ritual grew into longer conversations, laughter, and sometimes comfortable silence, where words were not necessary at all. But life does not always move gently. One morning, while sunlight streamed through her lace curtains and cast soft patterns across her floor, she told me she wanted me to consider moving into the extra room in her house. Not as a tenant this time, but as a companion, not romantic, not dependent, just someone who could be there, someone to share small moments with. She said she couldn't bear the idea of collapsing alone again. Her voice cracked on that last word. I didn't know how to respond at first. I was young, still trying to fix my own life, still searching for stability. But the thought of her living downstairs in silence, struggling to breathe on some days,